We have a very active period ahead heading into the month of November. It's been a very warm October, but finally we have a significant trough that we'll be diving in across the west. But out ahead of it, we've got plenty of warm air and a lot of warm air advection that's going to be coming off the Gulf of Mexico. And the Gulf of Mexico is going to be open up for business, and it's going to send waves and waves and waves of precipitation pretty much on a daily basis, tapping into that warm sector as we've got that cooler air pressing in from the northwest. If we, take a look at some of the temperatures this morning, this is insane, folks. I mean, we're talking, this is October the 29th, and we've got 70s. Yeah, that is not a misprint, folks. That's 70 in Nebraska this morning. That is 70 in Iowa. I don't need to tell you, we've got 67 in the central part of Michigan. That is insane for late October. In fact, it's some of the latest, warmest temperatures that I've seen ever since I've been doing the weather, folks. This is highly abnormal, well 20, 30, 35 degrees above average. But you can see where the cooler area is. That's off into the northwest. But we still have several days, in fact, 2 more days of record high temperatures. And out ahead of it, we're going to be seeing some very windy conditions across the middle part of the country. So do expect the winds to start cranking up, which is concerning for all the fires that are happening right now within the Oklahoma region. That's just going to be adding insult to those fires, because the grass is extremely dry. It's been just bone dry across the middle part of the country. We're just begging for rain, but we're going to get it in a big way. And once this starts, it might not stop for a while, folks. So we could have 7 to 10 days in a row of daily areas of measurable precipitation, and those are going to add up to a lot of rainfall over the next week and a half. But right now, we're concerned about all the high winds for today across the central and southern plains. We've got red flag warnings. And yes, that is the cold air with snow flying in Utah, Wyoming, and the mountains of Colorado there. But today, look at all the record high temperatures. Right now, we're forecasting 52 potential record highs. All these areas that are encircled are going to be crushing records today. Like I mentioned, this is the latest, warmest temperatures on record if you combine the low and the highs. Very abnormal for this time of year for late October heading into Halloween. But nonetheless, we've got 80s surging into Minnesota, Wisconsin, even into Michigan. We're printing 80 degrees there. 80s spread well to the south in Missouri, and even 90s showing up on the map in there in Texas. The only cooler air in town is just the outskirts of the New England, and yes, obviously where that trough is coming in from the Pacific Northwest, compliments of the snow flying across in the mountain regions, and it will set the stage for severe storms. Now, it's not very concerning today. It's definitely elevated more tomorrow, but nonetheless, we are going to be seeing some showers and thunderstorms, and some of those could have some gustier winds just if you live in the western Oklahoma region, back into central and western Kansas, as well as into areas of Nebraska where they are having those 80-degree temperatures today. And then going into tomorrow, it doesn't stop, folks, because yet we have another day, even 41. So do the math, folks. That's 93 potential record highs over the next 2 days as the 70s continue to surge really all the way to the Canadian border. 70s in New York, 70s in Pennsylvania, 80s back into Ohio. We've got 84 in there in Kentucky. Yeah, 90s, 95 degrees in South Texas. Yeah, plenty of warm air, but you can see the sharp gradient, right? That is that cold front. So you got the soupy warm air mass just ready to tap into with the Gulf of Mexico open for business. And then we've got the trough coming in from the northwest, and that will likely spell trouble in the form of some tornadoes that likely could unfold across central and Oklahoma and central Kansas there. And that will likely move into the eastern areas of Kansas and Oklahoma as we get into later in the evening. So I think this starts breaking out about 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow night on Wednesday. And then that will continue and lend to a squall line as we get into the overnight hours. likely into, the Halloween morning. So right now, the Storm Prediction Center does in fact highlight that slight risk for severe storms originating in the Oklahoma region, up here into Kansas, back into Missouri, and then further south into the northern portions of North Texas, and just a marginal risk. But the main area for tornadoes is likely going to be in central and Oklahoma, as well as into central Kansas earlier in the evening, and then it likely transfers once it gets into that squall line of more of a heavy rain and a gusty wind threat. This would likely be about 1 o'clock in the morning. 1 o'clock in the morning, this would be a nasty squall line that's moving across areas of Wisconsin, back into northern Illinois, through Missouri, back into eastern areas of Oklahoma, through areas of North Texas. So this would likely be an overnight type threat. Some large hail, gustier winds, and lightning, and some pockets of heavy rain as this will continue to move across into the morning hours, likely fizzling by the time we wake up in the morning, for those areas that are getting it on the overnight. But it doesn't stop there, because that cold front is only going to go so far. It actually backs up as a warm front. So the continued areas where you're warm now continue to stay warm for the central and eastern 2/3, and the cooler air continues to stay out west. But we're going to see another trough taking shape, and that actually digs down here into Southern California, into the Baja, and that will set up a renewed threat for heavier rains across the deserts and more heavy rains across the plains, as we're going to be tapping into more water vapor. Remember, the Gulf of Mexico is open. The atmosphere is prime with all the heat that we've been having lately. It's pent up demand up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, ready to unload. And that's exactly what's going to happen over days and days and days. So it's not going to just be a one-hit wonder. There's going to be pulses and waves of energy crossing the southern plains. Starting on Wednesday, going into Thursday, you'll have rain showers coming back on Friday night. And then boom, another surge of moisture enters on Saturday, heading into Sunday across Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma, back into those areas across the central and southern plains. And yes, there is the risk for some rain coming back, with that trough digging all the way down into California. So yes, we're talking areas into central and southern California getting into the action for the rain opportunities, and that will likely swing across Arizona into New Mexico with a more significant vorticity starting to appear as we head into Sunday. So this will be a renewed threat going into Sunday, starting originally down here in Southern California, but that continues to dig. The further it digs, the stronger it will be as it ejects out into the plains. And that is going to send heavier rains back into the deserts. We're talking Arizona, we're talking New Mexico, and yes, more pulses of energy that will swing into those areas across the center part of the country. And there's the setup on Sunday. So we'll have more renewed showers going back into the picture of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, back into Illinois, into Indiana. Yes, I think the eastern areas of the country, eastern seaboard, the Carolinas, the Southeast, I think you'll likely remain on the drier side, while much of the central part of the U.S. really eats away that drought. And then you'll start getting rain opportunities with that trough coming down out west, colder to the north, snow flying into the north, rain to the south, and that will only likely intensify as we have a more significant trough that really will start to dig. And look how far south this goes. This might be the biggest setup we've seen so far this fall. This would likely be on Monday, so this could be a more significant severe weather threat across the plains, and likely setting up. We've got several days to track this, but right now this is like 7 days out, but it's definitely concerning with that particular setup. Even right now, the old SIPS guidance even has that risk. Nothing on the SPC. Again, this is a day 7, but it will likely start to include this area over the next day or two, because man, this looks pretty potent as we come into that Monday time frame for a severe weather setup across the plains. And yes, we're talking more water vapor is going to be able to tap into. So Yeah, it's like feast or famine. These areas that just hadn't got a drop all month of October. Now it seems like the rain will not likely stop for another week or two, as much of the center part of the country just gets inundated with rounds and rounds of precipitation, some heavier rains, and yes, we could be even talking flood watches by then, if you can believe that, after the drought that we've been into. But yes, nonetheless, more heavy waves of rains come back, start back on Monday. This again, we'll fine tune this. This could be a more significant severe weather threat day for the plains. Definitely concerning with the setup that we're seeing at the moment right now, but just prepare for more rain across the center part of the country. And unfortunately, you continue to remain on the drier side for the southeast and much of the eastern seaboard. And there's the setup on Tuesday. You continue to have more impulses come out of the Gulf of Mexico with that south wind. Still a warm wind. It's still, I think, is going to be, lower, some higher lows. You won't be able to cool off at night because of the rain and the clouds across that region, but you won't be able to heat up in the day because, of course, of all the rains and the clouds. So, but do expect a lot of humidity to coming back, and it'll look just completely different than what you experienced in the month of October. And then, of course, as we head into Wednesday, this continues to take shape. We could even have a little bit colder air mass finally entering the picture. And yes, we're talking places like Denver might finally actually get their first snow. They could pick up a little bit tomorrow, but I think they pick up definitely a more significant threat as we head into next week, with a little bit cooler, if not colder, air mass finally entering the picture across those regions. And that will definitely be late for them getting their first snow in the first week of November. But nonetheless, look at some of the rain amounts, folks. This is the blend of models over the next 10 days. So we'll have these systems come in from the Pacific Northwest. This is where you would normally get heavier rains this time of year, but further south you don't. So these are definitely beneficial down there into California, Southern California, Arizona, back into New Mexico. Further north, this would likely be most of it in the form of snow. But look at what happens across the middle of the country with these waves and waves of energy and healthy rains coming back in the picture for Texas, getting into Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, back into Arkansas, portions of Louisiana. This would likely swing up into Illinois, Iowa, back into Wisconsin, into Michigan. And then, of course, lighter amounts with the cool front not reaching you back into the east. So you continue to stay on the warmer and the drier side for a good part of the Northeast, as well as the Eastern Seaboard and the Southeast regions. But it doesn't end there, folks, because yes, November is looking pretty active. And looking at the long range as we head towards the middle of the month, we could have a more ideal type setup for more severe storms coming back into the southern plains. So a very light month for October looks to really ramp up on the severe weather threat as we head into the month of November. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update while I protect you before and after the storm.